before that, we want to show you our company profile on Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center. Ding 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 ding.
Headquartered in Rawamangun, East Jakarta. Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center or Pusdiklat Bea Cukai is structurally reported to Ministry of Finance's Education and Training Agency. Pusdiklat Bea Cukai is located at the backyard of Directorate General of Customs and Excise or DGCE headquartered in Rawamangun, East Jakarta. Headed by a director, Pusdiklat Bea Cukai now has 10 trainers responsible to provide trainings for DGCE officials on customs and excise related subjects. These facilities are available at Pusdiklat Bea Cukai. 3 dormitories, each equipped with a mini gym and Wi-Fi connection, 19 classrooms, plenary hall, grand auditorium and 3 smaller auditoriums, dining hall, library, 2 computer laboratory, mini office, mini lab, and here are our training programs.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will move to the second topic, namely the implementation of e-learning in Indonesia. Please let me take a moment to introduce you to the speaker of this session. Bapak Jainal Imtihan is Deputy Director of Learning Delivery of Indonesian Customs and Excise Training Center. He has joined Ministry of Finance for more than 20 years and spent his current 4 years in this training center. His master degree majoring international relations at Ritsumeikan University, Japan, certainly gives big influence to this Indonesian Customs Training Center in contributing more to the region through several international capacity building activities. And now let's get into the presentation. Bapak Jainal Imtihan, please.
Okay, thank you, Sylvie. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, we can hear your voice clearly, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, Honorable Mr. Norigazu Kuramtu, Head of RUCB Asia Pacific, Honorable Pak Rio, Chairman of Finance, Education and Training Agency, Honorable Pak Heru Pambudi, Director General of Indonesian Directorate General of Custom and Excise, Honorable Pak Hari Mulya, our Director, Indonesian Custom and Excise Training Center, distinguished guests and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all, and good afternoon for participants in the eastern part regions. It is almost lunchtime by now, I think, and be patient with us, and you can enjoy your lunch while enjoying our webinar, I think. So first of all, I would like to thank you, Mr. Norikazu, Pak Rio, and Pak Heru, and also Pak Hari, for supporting us and all participants in joining us in this webinar. And secondly, it is my privilege to be here with you all, and I hope this discussion will be fruitful and we'll have a rich experience sharing within us. And as already mentioned by Sylvie, that this is our second international webinar. So thank you for your participation, and we are looking forward to having more support from you all for our next webinar. And I promise that we have more international webinar in the future. So without much ado, let's get roll. Please start our presentation. Okay, thank you. So my presentation title is Learning in Transitions, the Indonesian Custom and Excise Training Center Way. In this presentation, I would like to share the experiences that we had in our institution to cope with the changing situation and environment. Now, by saying that, please be aware that my presentation is not some kind of a theoretical presentation, but rather more about knowledge sharing that happened to us. I have divided my presentation into 5 parts, namely introduction, background, finance and education training agencies learning policy, the Custom and Education Training Center learning programs, and the last one, conclusions. Next, please. I have 3 objectives in my presentation. The first one is I would like to inform you what factors that gave any influences to us so that we have to shift our learning policy. Second, how the changing environments and circumstances and the policies which eventually evolve be translated into learning programs and learning activities in our training center. And the third one, what are the challenges that we have to deal with it? So hopefully I can explain all those outlines and meet the objectives in timely manner based on 3 aspects: the process, the numbers, and the trends. Next, please. So when the organizer of this webinar asked me, or hooked me, if you excuse me, to join as the speaker, I asked them, what is it all about? What is the theme? Then they told me that it is about transitions. Then I learned that it is about choice, about challenges. That reminds me to a poem by American poet Robert Frost called The Road Not Taken. Basically, this poem tells us about dilemma on choosing a certain way, a road in a junction. Of course, we cannot travel both roads at the same time. We have to choose. It is easy in real situations. You took one way, save the other way, and back to the fort on another day, travel the other route, right? But in life, things much more complicated. And for sure, for you cannot back, go to the past for more often than not, change or opportunity only come once, meaning that you have to make right decisions once opportunity or change come to you. So for me, this poem resonates this webinar's topic. It is about challenge on the way we do our business. Either we choose our conventional business as usual or habit, or out of our comfort zone in doing learning business process and take the new road with unprecedented hurdles and difficulties. So anyway, the moral of the story is that please be brave to go out of comfort zone, take the less traveled road, embrace the change, and that will make you different. Because when change to happen, it will always bring you not only challenges but also opportunity. So next, please. Now, let's take a look at some factors that contribute to the shape of our learning policy and learning activities. These three factors are external factors which affect our lives nowadays. The first one is that the increasing number of internet users and smartphone, especially in Indonesia. The second one is the Industrial Revolution 4.0. The last one, the COVID-19 pandemic. I may not give deep explanation on these aforementioned factors, yet I try to depict or give illustration to the fact in such a way that those three factors do give us an impetus or the environment for the conversion of our learning activities from conventional to online learning. Next, please. In this slide and in the next three slides, I will show you how the Indonesian society use internet access or the gadget. The data here was derived from the VR Social and Hotsuite, which I accessed from a Dear Portal website. According to this data, as of January 2020, there have been 338.2 million smartphones used in Indonesia, which correspond to 124% of our population. This means that many people in Indonesia has more than one smartphone. Furthermore, the internet penetration reached 64% in Indonesian population, although it is lag behind those of the Philippines, Malaysia, or Singapore. Yet in terms of the total number, I believe that the people in Indonesia with used internet connection is only behind those of China or India, I think. Next, please. In this slide, as we can see here, the highest percentage of mobile internet utilization is for socializing, whether it is through chat or networking. I think WhatsApp and Facebook are the champions of this category in Indonesia, although a younger generation is much more connected to Instagram recently. With the least is for dating, which accounted for 9.0%. I think it is good, because it means that we are still human, right? Next. Okay. So this is the data that about the most common queries in YouTube actually. I know that some of you might be, why not using Google? But why this YouTube? This is for technical reason actually. The first one, because the data available is this one. And if I try to look for information on about the common queries in Google, the information is much more less relevant to this webinar topic, simply because the result is too much detail. For example, I will give you an example. If the most common queries in Google during 2019 in Indonesia, the result is the word bucin. Bucin means budak cinta in bahasa Indonesia, which means slave of love in English. It is not necessarily related to that content, not at all. But guess what? Even myself, I don't have any idea what the word is meaning. It was too trendy for me as an older generation. Anyhow, this data was taken before COVID-19 pandemic occurred. So I guess it goes without saying that the word corona or COVID-19 or lockdown, for example, will take the center stage in the rest of the 2020. So if we take a look on this slide, anyone notice the word learning here? Nothing, right? So that's the challenge actually. Okay, so most of them are the queries is about song. The second one is about Indonesia, and I guess Indonesia will also increase because this month is our Indonesian Independence Day month in August. So next, please. Now here, a second factor is that now we are living in the era of industrial revolutions 4.0, a period which signified with fast data interchange, automated manufacturing, artificial intelligence, internet algorithm, which in funny way can predict your preferences, even your behavior, simply basing on your most searched keywords. The internet will lead you to the sources you needed or you like the most. So I think if in the past we heard the idiom you are what you eat or you are what you wear, maybe nowadays we can say you are what you search, right? We also surrounded by the plethora of internet-based services from ride-hailing taxi, food ordering to e-wallet. And in the next two slides, I will show you the ongoing growth of revenue and penetration of e-commerce in Indonesia. Next, please. According to this chart, it is predicted that by the end of 2020, the amount of e-commerce revenue is around 30 billion US dollars, and it will reach almost 50 billion US dollar by 2024. Next, please. While the penetration rate of e-commerce by the end of 2020 will be 50% and will reach 73% of our population by 2024. I think this is quite daring forecast because it means that half of our total households in Indonesia have an experience in using internet to purchase certain goods. Given the fact that almost half of Indonesian population still lives in rural areas, it suffices to say that basically this forecast based mainly on urban households. The next factor, which is the last factor from the internal environment, is the COVID-19 pandemic. I think we already knew the tremendous effect of COVID-19 pandemic to our social and economic lives. We have movement control order, school and business closure, economic contraction and low spending. Indonesian economic growth during the first half of 2020 is predicted around minus 5.3% year on year. And according to Central Bureau of Statistics, our household spending is around minus 6% year on year. However, I don't know how to put that, whether you agree or not with me, but there is a bright side of COVID-19 pandemic actually. For example, the booming in utilization of online meeting. According to the BBC, the British BBC, they said that the use of Zoom jumped 30-fold in April as the coronavirus pandemic forced millions to work and learn from home. And in its peak, more than 300 million daily participants in virtual meeting, including the participant in this webinar, I think. And in terms of learning activities, these circumstances also provide a catalyst for us to convert our learning material or our classroom management in much faster pace than we anticipated. So to sum up, those are the three factors that I believe have a huge impact in our transition from doing conventional learning to online or e-learning business process. We saw that in terms of the number of internet users, the familiarity in doing online business, and the steady growth of internet penetration in Indonesian society gave us a clear picture that converting conventional learning to e-learning is timely. It is not about a choice, but it is necessity. Otherwise, we'll be doomed because we have to change accordingly. Now, let us look how these factors are translated to learning policies and learning programs in our institution. But before that, let us look another factor which also gave a pivotal role in our transitions. That is the adoption of more corporate university by finance and education training agency. Next, please. So here in this slide, before we start discuss what is MOF Corporate University or Kemenkeu Corpu in Bahasa Indonesia, I think it is better if we take a moment to learn where is the Custom and Excise Training Center position within Indonesian Ministry of Finance, because it will help you to understand not only how unique the CETC positions comparing to training center within custom administrations, but it also give you some kind of illustration that how CETC or Custom Education Training Center must conform its learning policies and directions not only to Finance Education Training Agency but also to Directorate General Custom and Excise as our main stakeholder. As you can see here, that the CETC or Custom Indonesian Training Center is below Finance Education Training Agency. We have 6 other training centers within FETA. So this Custom Excise and Training Center must conform not only to FETA policy and regulations, but also we have to conform to Director General of Customs and Excise as our main partner. And FETA is headed by a chairman, and our training center is headed by a director, which is Pak Harimulya is current director. Next, please. So, what is the Kemenkeu Corporate University? It is defined as a strategy to achieve Ministry of Finance vision and mission through creating a link and match between learning, knowledge management, and internal values to meet the overall Ministry of Finance performance and target. This concept is derived from Mark Allen paper in 2002. When Finance Education and Training Agency decided to adopt this corporate university strategy, it did not mean that FETA as an entity become a university with students. No, it is only a strategy which is designed to assist parent company, that is the parent organization, that is the Ministry of Finance, to achieve its vision and mission. It also means balancing the importance of individual capacity building in one side and the achievement of Ministry of Finance business objectives in one side, that both must go hand in hand, for both are equally important. In the next few slides, I will show you the reason why corporate university is chosen and how this strategy is translated into learning programs and its relations to e-learning conversions. Next, please. So this is the road to Kemenkeu Corpu. The Finance, Education and Training Agency, or I call it FETA, for the rest of this presentation, decided to adopt the strategy in 2015. Some of the milestones are as follows. In 2015, in 2016, kick-off and benchmarking. We visited and did benchmarking to many leading national companies which already adopted the corporate university strategy, like our national petroleum company, Pertamina. And as for the Indonesian government institution, MOF is the first in adopting this corporate university. And in 2016, we did our self-assessment, which is to measure whether our institution is ready or not to adopt this kind of strategy. In 2017 and 2018, many learning policies, either MOF-wide or FETA-wide, were deliberated and adopted. And by the end of 2018, Corpu strategy began to take shape and implemented within our training centers. In 2019, the digital learning became the focus of the development and the implementation within the corporate university strategy. And by 2020, more e-learning platforms, learning programs, and courses are developed in digital technology. Next, please. This is the chart to depict the corporate strategy, that is the corporate university. I hope it helps you visualize the definition much easier. As you can see here, the individual capacity building on the left side as part of human resource development, and Ministry of Finance business objectives on the right side are paramount to achieve more vision and vision as a whole. I shall touch upon the learning value chain, learning need analysis process later on the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. Part of the reason why corporate university was adopted is because prior to 2015, FETA functioned more or less as a training centers. The way we conduct our learning business did not care much whether our learning program was strategically had an impact to the overall Ministry of Finance business objectives. We did our learning program mainly because it was the main FETA business. As a result, most other agencies or Directorate General within Ministry of Finance perceived that the training was only FETA's responsibility. Those who were assigned to participate in training were usually underperformed staff, not those who want to enhance their skill or knowledge. So within this environment, the chairman of the FETA and the directors of all the training centers agree that corporate university should be adopted, simply because corporate university, when they design learning program, it is aligned with the main business of this parent company, which is the MOFs. And the service is characterized by the more proactive activity. Learning process is more integrated, and the methods is much more diversified. Prior to 2015, mostly the class is classical, and with the embracing of this corporate university, more learning methods was adopted, like blended learning, online learning, and also the documentation of tacit knowledge. Next, please. So, basically, corporate university did not change the FETA as an entity, but rather it is the change the way we do our business process in learning, change the learning as an integrated part of human capital management. Human capital management is everybody's responsibility. Board of directors more committed in supporting the learning process and administration conducted in FETA or in training centers. And also, it means that adopt more learning models and methods and more aligned and integrated toward corporate business objectives. So once again, the Corpu is a strategy. It does not mean change the institution or the organization of finance, education, and training agency. Next. And here in the slide, the corporate university strategy is translated into more operational activity. We can see here that the corporate university is translated into the learning management system that we call PLC, stand for Kemenkeu Learning Center. So this PLC is our learning and knowledge management system where you can access our courses and repository of our tacit knowledge. If you click the courses, then you will have courses materials, and if you click the knowledge tab, you can access to the repository of our tacit knowledge within it. So this is how we translate our Corpu into our learning and knowledge management system. Next, please. And here is the more operational translation of MOF Corporate University from the e-learning perspective. It is translated into the compositions of our learning program in our learning calendar that 30% of our total learning calendar must be conducted through e-learning. By the end of 2021, the portions of our e-learning program should reach 70% of the total of our learning programs. We shall see later whether or not this target is achieved. And if it is not achieved, then why? And maybe we can learn the challenges. So, in my opinion, the adoption of corporate university is another factor, which is an internal factor that accelerates the conversion of our conventional learning to e-learning. So, by doubling those three external factors with this one internal factors, the conversions of our learning program and learning activities from conventional to online or e-learning training much more enhanced, I think. So now let us move to Custom and Excise Training Center. How did Custom and Excise Training Center transform these policies into learning programs? Next. So this is the our CETC, Custom and Excise Training Center learning organizations. As I mentioned before, that CETC is under FETA within the Ministry of Finance. Next, please. And here is our human resources. That the CETC has 83 people on the management and staff. Most of them are younger generation. If we agree that those who belongs to 40 years old and below in a young generation, then I guess it is more than 55% of our human resources are younger generations. And thanks to the access to our educations, now most of the human resources within the CETC hold undergraduate degree or higher. Next, please. I shall conduct my presentation much faster. And here's our trainers. We have 14 trainers. Most of them, all of them are master degree holder and considered young. 93% of them are under 50 years old. Next, please. Now, this is the learning need analysis process. We began with the preparation or gather all resources for the strategic issue, policy, and etc. from the Directorate General Custom and Excise and other Directorate General within the MOF. And then the Minister of Finance lead what we call a learning council meeting. This is how we direct, how we inform our learning program for 1 year to come under the guidance of Minister of Finance herself. Then this data will be taken into a process of data verifications and then finalized in our meeting with the Directorate General Custom of Excise in the case of CETC. And what is this output actually? Next, please. And this is the resources that we use in the process of learning need analysis process. We have performance organizations data and information. Then what is the business process change within the Directorate General of Custom Excise? And what is the strategic policy that is taken by the Directorate General of Custom Excise? On and all, we have to take into account so that we can use to design and develop the learning material that we have to conduct it in the next year. So this basically, this learning need analysis happened to year -1. So for example, our next 2021 training program or learning program, the LNA process must be conducted this year, 2020. Next, please. So during this pandemic COVID-19, the process of learning need analysis shifted to comply with the pandemic protocol. The first one that switched from classical meeting to online meeting when identifying the needs, on also switching the existing classical training into online training. Next, please. So the challenges that we have to be dealt with is that the nature of the training itself, because most of the training that needed by the employees within the Directorate General Custom Excise is actually more practical and some of them more physical. So we have to take account the nature of the characteristic of the training itself. And then we also have to take into account the learning culture, whether the employees tend to learn or train in a classical class, or they are ready to online or long distance class. So if we take into account the nature of the training, then we decided to whether put it on hold or we break it into much more blended learning. So for example, the theoretical part should be conducted in e-learning, and then the more practical should be conducted in classical way. But if it is totally physical, then we have to postpone it into next year. That we hope that the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, will be over. So if it is not conducive yet, I think those physical training like induction training may be still be postponed next year. Next slide, please. So the output of those learning need analysis process is that we have learning programs, learning calendar, instructional system design, and learning material. On and all will be conducted, which is currently, based on the situation that I mentioned above, conducted in a more online activities. Next, please. So here is the variety of learning method that we adopted today. Started from the classical, and then we also have a blended learning, We also have full e-learning program. We also have online long distance learning. We also have open access and also open classes. You can learn the point of distinctions of each of these programs and each of these learning methods by reading here. For example, who can participate in the classical, in the online learning, or long distance learning, open access and open class. For this classical, for example, all Mr. of Finance civil servants can take this course, but it should be assigned officially from the office. That's also happened to the online long distance learning. Only for the Ministry of Finance civil servants and must be officially assigned from their office. But for the open class, it is public. If we use the online form of open class, then everybody can access to the material and will participate to the webinar. So next, please. So this is the number, the learning programs within our training centers, starting from 2018, 2019, and 2020. If you can see here, I guess the number of classical learning is downward, but the number of the e-learning or online courses are increasing, especially in 2020. So we can see, we shall see the trend in the next few slides. Next, please. For FETA-wide, this is the trend. If we compare classical learning versus e-learning, this yellow bars represent the classical program, and this blue straight line represent the e-learning programs. As you can see here, the chart is increasing very sharply, while the trend of classical learning is downward. We'll see this kind of training, the numbers and the trend in our training centers. Next, please. And this is what happened in our training centers. In 2018, almost zero e-learning programs. But by the end of July 2020, the program is 47. And the classical learning is downward also, from 45 in 2018 to only 18 by 2020, by the end of the first half of 2020. So this kind of trend, I think, conform to what the external factor that I mentioned above, and also well translate the policy of converting the training from conventional to learning that conducted by the FETA Corporate University. So next, please. So here is the open access. Sorry, this is conducted in Bahasa Indonesia, of course, but the focus that I want to show you here that we have numbers of open access to a public. We have already 19 open access programs this year, and hopefully it will be increased next year. In terms of the participants, we have 10,168 registered participants. Those already finished, it's almost 1,000, and the rest 1,800 still on progress. This open access is, like the name itself, it's open a whole year, so anybody can access from January to December. So this is open access. So sometimes they register on January because of their tasks and the activities. Maybe the learning process is quite slow, so perhaps they are still on progress. So here's the chart of open access. Next, please. And this is the community of practice. The community of practice is actually an activity to provide us learning from others. By meaning learning from others, that this community of practice, they discuss about the operational activities, the challenges that they face in the operational basis, and they discuss each other. We facilitate this kind of communities, and this year we conducted at least 5 focus group discussion, and the topic ranging from excise, manifest, food inspection, and appeal, with more than almost 1,000 participants. And hopefully next year we can conduct more on this community of practice. This is our commitment in not only learning should be conducted in a structured way. By structured way means that you learn or train with somebody like trainers in a class, whether it is a classical classroom or virtual classroom, but you also learn from other person that has same activities, same expertise, same interest. So by facilitating this, I believe that custom education training centers not only provide structured learning program, but also learning from others. This is much more wider participant in this case. Next, please. So this is the illustration about the then and now activities in our classroom management and our learning activities. Prior to 2015, the classroom management is like this. You meet personally with the participants. The classroom is managed by arranging their bag, their learning materials, and their stationery ready in place in the classroom. By now, because of the learning conducted mainly in online basis, digital, those persons must cope with how to operate the camera, for example, the sound engineering, learn to write the script, learn to how to host properly. So this kind of conversion, this kind of adaptation should be taken into account. And I believe the younger generation you have in your institution, the faster and the easier you manage this kind of activities and changing. So I think this is interesting, and thankfully half of our employees are from younger generation. They learn quite a lot, and they learn faster than us, I think, older generations. Next, please. So this is our major challenges in organizing online learning. Started from the host and participants to hardware equipment, pre and post-test tools, unstable internet connections, superior support and commitment to more flexible online long-distance learning regulations. But I think the most challenging one is how to make the participants engage in long hours synchronous class. What I mean by synchronous is that you and the trainer have the same time meeting. And if it is conducting long hours in a day, using webinar, using Zoom, it is quite challenging to make them stay, to make them engage with your learning material is quite challenging. The second one, I think the hardest is that how to change the learning habit from classical one into learning based on digital technology. So that is, I think, challenging. And also important to notice that Indonesia is a large country, nationwide, our technological information technology is not the same. We cannot imagine that all Indonesian access is like in Jakarta or like metropolitan area. You have to take those into account because of the custom and excise officers sometimes posted in remote area in Indonesia and they don't have any sufficient internet connection. So you have to take it into account also as part of the challenges. So by showing these major challenges, I think I come to the end of my presentation. Next, please. This is my conclusions. So I think there are three factors which contribute to the conversion of a custom and excise trend sensor learning program from classical or conventional into learning programs. The external factors are rapid development on information technology, the adoption of corporate university strategy by FETA, and the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think our training center has well adopted the shift, which shown by the process and the number of learning programs. The learning method that we have much more diversified and aligned not only to the strategic need of the MOV, but also to a digital platform. And the last one, I think there are numerous challenges that must be addressed. However, the challenging, changing and learning habit and the environment are the hardest to tackle. And I think FETA as a corporate university is well on track, although it is still developing. And to become effective or ideal corporate university, still a long way to go, because based on our experience, when we visit some national companies, corporate university, they usually take 10 to 15 hours to build ideal corporate university. So this is our last slide. So thank you for your attention, and back to you, Sylvie. Thank you.
Thank you, Bapak Imtihan, for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we like to move to the Q&A session. We will now take questions from the audience. If you would like to ask a questions, please raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon in the middle right of your screen, or you can deliver it by chat in the Zoom. So, the question. First question from Andurupa Dev. Do you think introducing a new university like Kemenkeu Corporate University in the members countries of WCO will help us to progress in business knowledge and e-learning? Does it work for career development? Please, sir.
Okay, thank you for this interesting question from Anurupa Dev from India. I tried my best to answer your questions. I believe that by introducing corporate university to WCO member countries is quite effective in assisting them to achieve their business objectives, simply because the learning program under corporate university scheme or under the corporate university strategy, as I mentioned before, it is much more aligned to the business strategy of the parent company. So let's say if your Ministry of Finance or any custom administration under WCO regime or member of the WCO has a specific stress or specific focus in achieving their mission. Let's say next year, the Indian Custom Administration shall take a focus how to overcome the cross-border smuggling, for example. Then the training center within this custom administration should talk aloud with the counterpart in their technical unit, try to elicit what is the main focus what are the needed my learning material to achieve that goal. So once you have effective communications, you can you can design a learning program that effectively correspond to what the main target or the main objectives that will be achieved by conducting the anti-smuggling, for example, in the field that will be conducted by the officer within the Directorate General of Customs in India. So I think, once again, the corporate university will not only help to achieve the business objective within the partner of the training center, but also I believe it will also help to direct the career path of the employees itself, because under the corporate university, the learning that taken by the employees is well recorded. For example, if I myself, an employee which conducted daily basis, daily tasks in managing class, then I have to take the training how to conduct the classroom effectively. It is recorded. And the next year, I have to take another training or another learning to enhance the already learned about the class management. For example, I shall take another training on selfish level agreement, for example, so that it is better for me not only manage the class better, but also to serve the participant of our training better. So in this case, as a class manager, my career will be much easier, assisted by what kind of training that I have to take. So this kind of record, this kind of data and information will be put in our human resources system, and that it will be part of our learning journey to sustain our career path development. So that's my answer. Hopefully I can answer your questions. Back to you, Sylvie.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the question from Miss Anurpade from Bangladesh, sir.
Oh, sorry, because I noticed it the writing in the slide is from India. Sorry, Mr. Anurpade.
Okay. Next question from Muhammad Shahadat. Please, sir.
Hello,
unmute
good
your
morning.
audio. Yes. Please unmute your audio. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Assalamualaikum. I am Muhammad Shahadat Jamil from Bangladesh Customs.
Okay, walaikum salam warahmatullah.
So my question is, are you conducting foundation training for custom inspector during this COVID-19 pandemic through e-learning platform?
Pardon me, could you please repeat your question, because of the voice is quite not clear here.
Question is, are you conducting foundation training for customs inspectors during this pandemic?
Yeah, whether I will conduct this training in custom inspection during this pandemic, well, I guess we have the program, but whether or not it is conducted or not, I shall check our schedule, sir. So I believe we have the program, but whether or not it is conducted or before, I guess I have to check it later. And I think the host of this webinar will be happily to answer you later, because I have to check the schedule, our learning calendar. Hopefully I can inform you later on with much more precise information, sir. That's my answer for now. Thank you. But I believe we have the program, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Inti, and thank you, Mr. Sahadat. Next, from Yudi, live question. Please, Mr. Yudi.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Pak Rio Silaban, Pak Heru Pambudi, Pak Hari Mulya, and konnichiwa, Kuramoto-san and Intiham-san. Onamai wa Yudi desu. Wala Tanjung Seikan Chou desu. Ritsumaikan aja Taihayo Daigaku de Benkyou shimashita. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu.
そうか、同じ大学ですね。私も立命館大学へ勉強ことがありますけど、よろしくお願いします。はい。
My question is, Intihan-san, how does Indonesian Custom Training Center integrate CLIC into your curriculum? And perhaps Kuramoto-san can give us more example from other custom training center. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. That is an interesting question. Actually, we already considered to to calibrate or to integrate our learning platform with the WCO CLIC. If I'm not mistaken, we already discussed about it last year. Once I got capacity building in Kashiwa in Japan, and I told them that I told this training center and FETA in general that we have to start integrate our learning platform, our learning management system, integrate to WCO CLIC, and basically we are agree on that. But due to the technical reasons, and due to the limit of our resources, 2019 and 2020, the focus is still developing the learning management system within the FETA. But I think in the near future, I think this integration is much more possible. So basically, yes, we will integrate our learning management system to WCO CLIC, but I think based on our assessment, our technical problem is still not ready yet. Once we are ready with that, I think the integration will be much more possible. So that's my answer. Hopefully it will help you with sufficient information. Thank you.
Yes. Next from Zoom chat. First from Mr. Muhammad Ali. Do you give training only to customs cadet on officers? Can ordinary students get a degree or diploma from your university? Please, sir.
Okay. Can you put that slide stay on the screen? Because I need to read it. Okay. So, okay, thank you. So the first one is that from Muhammad Ali. Do you give training only to custom cadet and officers? Can ordinary student get a degree or diploma from your university? Okay, so thank you for your questions. The first one, if the questions is directed to us, custom and excise training centers, then our training participants is only for the custom officers. So we cannot train other participants outside of the Directorate General Excise. And if public want to learn our learning or education program, we have a colleague under the FETA called State Finance Colleague. In Bahasa Indonesia, we call it PKN-STAN, or State Polytechnic for State and Accounting and Finance. So the public, once they graduated from senior high school, they can enroll to this polytechnic and become a student. And then once they finish, take their degree, a diploma degree actually, in this polytechnic, then they can role, or they can apply to become the Minister of Finance employee or officers. So yes, within this polytechnic, public can enroll as a students, and we have many different major on that polytechnic, starting from accounting, taxations, custom and excise, and also state budgeting. So that's my answer to your questions. The second question is, can you please repeat the
Screen, sir? Yes.
screen? Yeah. Second is from Dimas, Indonesia. Hands-on experience is said to be the best learning method. How does CETC deliver it during the pandemic? Yeah, I believe, thank you for your question. I agree with you. Hands-on experience is the best training method. So during this pandemic, as I mentioned before, we put hold this kind of training. But actually, we also have a program like, for example, we call it the leader as a teacher. So those retired officer from Ministry of Finance or within from the Directorate General Custom and Excise, for example, Mr. Derajatun, usually we invite him to deliver the learning or the training for us in a leadership, for example. Then he will share the experience based on his experience as a Director General of a Custom Excise. This kind of hands-on experiences can be conducted during the pandemic through online, for example. And as I mentioned before, we also has the FGD, focus group discussion, under the COP, community of practice. So this community of practice consists of the operator staff or employees within the Directorate General Custom and Excise unit in region in Indonesia. They can have a discussion, they share the challenges, they share what happened in their daily basis as a custom officer in dealing with the services and dealing with the corporations. Once they have the problem, they cannot solve this problem by themselves. They raise their issue within this community of practice, and then we facilitate them to meet and discuss through a webinar like this. And in the short term, the discussion can provide solutions, and in the long run, this kind of discussion can provide some kind of policy paper for the Directorate General Excise to take into their policy making in the process in the long run. So I agree with you that the hand-on experience is quite valuable, and it is possible to be conducted during the pandemic through online learning or online webinar, I think. That's my answer, Sylvie, for the second question.
Yeah. For the next question is, from Sukri, Malaysia. Do you have any planning to conduct joint training program with existing university, like what have done by Customs and Excise study in Canberra with local university in Australia? Please, sir.
Okay. Yeah. I think what I know so far that joint program with the university, we have it last 2 or 3 years ago, I think. We have a joint program with the University of Indonesia in Jakarta and University of Gajah Mada in Yogyakarta, two leading universities in Indonesia, to conduct the master degree in taxations and revenue collections. I think those initiative is conducted due to the fact that some kind of integration business between Directorate General of Taxation and Directorate General Custom and Excise should be enhanced. So this kind of a joint program within Directorate General Taxation and Directorate General Custom and Excise materialized into a degree program. And this degree program was conducted with two leading universities that I mentioned before, the University Indonesia and University Gajah Mada in Yogyakarta. But as far as I know, this kind of program is lasted for 2 or 3 years ago, and I haven't any information yet whether this kind of program will be conducted in the future. But outside of that, we also have some kind of global partnership with other universities under the platform of a GDLN, if I'm not mistaken. The GDLN is stand for a Global Development Learning Network, and it's international network. The members, it consists of not only training center within government institutions, but also universities across the regions. But as far as I know, that the specific training program at the university that we are conducted so far is that with those University of Indonesia and University of Gajah Mada in terms of revenue collection degree program. Hopefully I can answer your question, Mr. Supri. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next question.
তোমার টিচারকে মেসেজ দিচ্ছি কোন টিচার
From Ririn Septiani, Indonesia,
What a message
I
did I
would
get?
like to know
Mobile.
whether the CETC plan to conduct the online training,
What's it again?
not only webinar. If so, what preparation that have been done and what are the challenges? Please, sir.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ririn Septiani, for your questions. Yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, the first challenge in conducting the training through e-learning or through online, I think, is that we have to deal with the characteristic of the training itself. We have to categorize it, whether it is more practical or whether it is more on a theoretical basis. If it is theoretical basis, then it is much easier to conduct. But if it is more practical, so this COVID-19 pandemic, it's quite give us a serious problem because we have limitation of movement. Because if we want to conduct the practical training into airport, into a port, it will be quite challenging, I think. So the first challenge is that we have to categorize the characteristic of the training. The second challenge, as I mentioned before, is that we have to deal with the infrastructure, especially if we deal with the participants who live in a rural area or in the remote region within Indonesia. We have to deal with the internet connection, for example, or availability of the technology over there. And the next challenge is that the engagement of the participant towards this online learning. And from the internal, here in the training centers, the conventional material from conventional learning material into online learning materials quite challenging. You know how to put those let's say, learning material on a custom and Excise let's say, from the module, 300 pages module, into a learning video, for example. And this video should be limited in 5 minutes, for example. You have to take into account that you have to produce many videos, and you have to deal with how many duration of this video to cope all of those modules. So this kind of a challenge is quite tough to be faced. And some of the preparation that we already conducted is that, for example, for the management classroom, we already invited the resource person from our local TV to train our employees, our staff, how to conduct a better webinar, how to conduct a better seminar through online like this one. And also we train them how to use the Zoom or other online technologies in managing the class. For example, how to admit the participants, how to collect the presentation form using this kind of technology, because if we do it in a conventional way, it is easy. Just collect the presentation list and then we can recap the attendance. But if it is conducted in online like this one, how do we cope? How do we manage the attendance lists for the participants? So we train them how to use this kind of platform for the management classes. So I think the parts of the preparation, I think, is reading. So thank you for your questions, I think.
Okay, sir. The next question is,
okay, are the books of CETC and the books of Kemenkeu overlap in a case of providing training to the customers? Now, thank you for your question. I think overlap or not, perhaps I want prefer to use the word complement. I think overlap is give somewhat kind of not a good thing, but I think it's complement each other. What we did in our training centers is complement to each other to the FETA training programs. As I mentioned before, that not only we have to conform with the DE Directorate General Custom and Excise need, but we also conform to the FETA policy. So in case we have a training program that in your opinion overlap, then we consult with the Finance Education Training Agency, we discuss it, and then we will see the solutions, whether this training program should be continued or should be postponed. So I mean, we have a system, we have a facility to discuss about some challenges like this overlapping program. So that is my answer. I think complement it's much more complement each other. It's much precise, I think. Thank you.